Welcome to the Maternity Mentor. Today we will be talking about the top infant sleep training techniques, how to use them, and why you should consider them so you can get back to sleeping through the night. Stay with us. Hi, I'm Samantha. I've been a registered nurse since 2009, working in mother-baby postpartum, NICU, antepartum, and labor and delivery. I'm also an IBCLC, I'm maternal newborn nursing certified, and I have received training in perinatal mood and anxiety disorders as well as perinatal bereavement. From the beginning of life, babies sleep erratically, leaving behind sleep-deprived parents. Establishing good sleep patterns is an early goal for many parents, and sleep training is a way to accomplish this. In part 2 of our infant sleep series, we will explore what the top sleep training techniques are and how to use them. Sleep is an important part of brain development and is essential for healthy growth and development. Babies ages 4 to 12 months need 12 to 16 hours of sleep per day, including naps. When babies don't get enough sleep, it can lead to increased risk of childhood obesity and behavioral issues later in life. It also increases the risk of postpartum depression for the sleep-deprived parents. Sleep training is a technique used by parents to help their baby learn to fall asleep by themselves. Not only do babies learn to fall asleep independently, but they also learn how to go back to sleep independently. Sleep training is a skill that is learned by both parents and babies at the same time. Just like there are different ways to tie your shoes, there are many different ways to sleep train. Many parents are concerned that sleep training means their baby cannot eat during the night. This is just not true. It simply means that when the feeding is completed, your baby will have the skills to fall back to sleep independently. Sleep training is not harmful to your baby's health and does not harm their attachment to you. Many experts feel it's an important developmental step for your baby. Studies have also shown that sleep training does not increase the risk of your child developing behavioral or emotional problems later in life. It's important to understand when sleep training should begin. Starting too early can lead to frustration and failure. Newborns are not ready or able to sleep train. They need to be fed and responded to around the clock as part of their development. The ideal time to start sleep training is when your baby is between 4 and 6 months of age. By this time, your baby is probably already sleeping 4-hour stretches or longer, making it easier to begin this process. Babies older than 6 months can sleep train as well, but it might take a little longer. Additionally, please remember sleep training does not mean you're eliminating nighttime feedings. Those will continue until your pediatrician recommends they stop, which is usually around 9 months of age. Additionally, you should not prop feed your baby at night or leave your baby in the crib with their bottle to feed themselves. Both of these habits are unhealthy and dangerous. Before we continue, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe so you can get our latest content to have a happy and healthy family. Now, let's talk about specific sleep training methods. The first method that most parents are familiar with is the extinction or cry it out method. You start with your established bedtime routine. You put your baby to bed awake, say goodnight to them, and then leave the room. Then you let your baby cry until they fall asleep. This can be very hard for parents, as babies can cry for a very long time for the first few nights before settling down, often because they are exhausted from crying. Additionally, babies may get up every hour and cry, making it that much more difficult. That's why this method is so controversial. Some experts recommend that you don't go back into the room until the baby's scheduled feeding or the morning, depending on what's normal for your baby. Others recommend staying out of the room for a predetermined amount of time, usually at least 3 hours. After this time, if your baby wakes up, you may enter the room, comfort your baby for a few minutes before leaving the room again. No matter how you approach it, there is a lot of crying, and not just from the baby. It usually takes 3 or 4 days for this form of sleep training to be completed, but should be done consistently for 1 week before determining it's not working. If you're concerned about this form of sleep training or you're not comfortable with it, you should not try this approach. There are plenty more methods to try. The next method is the check and console or Ferber method. In this method, after following your regular bedtime routine, you place your baby in bed, say goodnight, and leave the room. However, in this method, if your baby cries, you will check on your baby at preset times. The preset time can be whatever you choose, but should usually be a minimum of 5 minutes. When you come in to comfort your baby, you do not pick them up. Instead, you speak kindly to them and give them a rub or a pat. Another version of this method is checking on the baby at intervals, but the intervals get longer and longer. For example, you might start checking on your baby at 5 minutes, but the next time you wait 6 minutes, then 7 minutes, and so on. Both versions continue until your baby stops crying. If they wake up, you start over again. This usually takes a week to accomplish. The chair method is a much more gradual process. It usually takes 2 weeks to implement. You start with your bedtime routine, place your baby in bed, and say goodnight. However, with this method, you won't leave the room. Instead, you will sit in a chair next to the crib. When your baby falls asleep, you can leave the room, but if they wake up, you have to go and sit back in the chair until they fall asleep again before you leave the room. Every couple nights, you will move your chair a little farther from the crib until eventually you are outside your baby's room. This can be extremely challenging for parents and requires a lot of commitment. Part of the reason is because you cannot read a book or look at your phone while you are practicing this method. Additionally, you will most likely still have to listen to your baby cry, and they are watching you watch them cry. Many parents will choose this method because despite its challenges, it's a method that keeps the parent present in the process. Another option is the fading method. This is considered a gentle version of sleep training with a goal of minimizing crying. The first step is to watch your baby's natural sleep patterns to determine their natural bedtime. You can determine this by looking out for sleeping cues like yawning, eye rubbing, and fussiness. Once you determine this time, you will start by making this the new bedtime. Now, this may not be the time you prefer, but this is your starting point. You will then complete your bedtime routine, so it ends at this new bedtime with you placing your baby in bed. You can soothe your baby in whatever way you normally do, but the idea is that if you put your baby down at this natural time, your baby should go to sleep in a few minutes with minimal crying. If your baby does get upset, you take baby out of the crib for a set amount of time, like 30 minutes, and try again. If your baby goes to sleep quickly at this point, this becomes the new bedtime. Once the bedtime has been determined, you continue this pattern for several nights up to a week. Then you will move the bedtime routine back by 15 minutes and continue at this new time for several days. You will continue this process until you have reached the bedtime you desire. The main downfall of this technique is that it takes a good amount of time. If your baby's natural bedtime is 9 p.m. and you are looking for your baby to go to bed at 7 p.m., this may take a while to achieve. This method can fall apart if parents take off even one night, so consistency is extremely important. The camping out method is like a hybrid of a few different methods. It has multiple steps, and each step takes at least 3 days, but may take as many as 5 days depending on your preference. It starts with completing your bedtime routine as usual. Then, instead of rocking or cuddling your baby, you place your baby in bed and rub their back. The next step is you sit by your baby's bed after placing them down, but you do not touch them. Once that step is completed, you will then move your chair to the middle of your baby's room. Then you will sit outside the door of your baby's room, but in a spot where your baby can still see you. Finally, you sit outside the room in an area where your baby cannot see you, but you can verbally provide comfort and reassurance. This last step can also be done using a two-way monitor. A very positive benefit of this method is you are encouraged and allowed to verbally reassure your baby throughout the process. You can also move through the steps faster if your baby is ready. The downside of this method is that it often takes a full month to complete. Finally is the pick up, put down method, which is a straightforward, easy method to try. You complete your bedtime routine as normal. You will then place your baby in bed, say goodnight, and leave the room. When you hear your baby cry, you re-enter the room to comfort your baby. Traditionally, with this method, you pick your baby up and rock or hold them until they calm down. Once they are calm, you lay them back down and leave the room. If your baby becomes upset, you can wait a short period of time to see if they settle down, and if not, you can re-enter and calm them down. The method you choose to calm them down is also your choice. It can be anything from kind words to patting their back, or as the name implies, picking them up. It's really up to your instinct and preference. The nice thing about this method is that it is considered very gentle and almost no tears. The downside is that it requires a lot of commitment by both parents because it can take a long time. No matter whether you choose to sleep train or not, it's extremely important to make sure your baby is safe while sleeping. This helps reduce the risk of SIDS or sudden infant death syndrome. Unfortunately, the cause of SIDS remains unknown, but studies have shown that safe sleep practices dramatically reduce a baby's risk of SIDS. The American Academy of Pediatrics, or APA, recommends a variety of strategies for safe sleep, including placing a baby on their back to sleep, using a firm mattress, no loose, soft items in the crib, avoiding overheating, having your baby sleep in your room until 6 months of age, avoiding the use of smoking, drugs, and alcohol, and providing your baby with childhood vaccines. For more information on safe sleep, please see part 1 of our video series. We will link that in the description below. Helping your baby learn to sleep can be very stressful. I hope this video has explained the different sleep training methods to you and helped you choose the right one for your family. Please share your comments and let us know what topics you would like to hear more about. If you like this content, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe so you can be the first to receive this information. Remember to share this channel with your friends and family and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for additional content. We will link those in the description below. Thank you so much for joining us at the Maternity Mentor.